Revelation 2417. From the 20th of July 1942. Responsibility of the soul in earth life. The human being's responsibility towards his soul in his earthly life has to be brought to his attention, and this happens through instruction in the divine teaching which is offered to the human being as Christ's teaching and which shows him the clear path he has to take. The knowledge of this must be imparted to him, otherwise he could not be held responsible. He must know that the body is capable of everything, but that it does much at the expense of the soul, but only the soul needs to take responsibility, and therefore it must muster the strength to deny the body what is certainly beneficial for it but disadvantageous for the soul. And the soul alone is decisive for what the body does. For the body without the soul is dead, therefore the soul gives it life, because willing, thinking and feeling emanate from the soul, thus being, as it were, the epitome of the soul. If the thinking, feeling and willing is only turned towards the body and only its desire is fulfilled, then the soul must live in want and its poverty will become apparent when it has to answer for its earthly life. For the body will pass away and therefore need not bear the consequences of the wrong way of life, whereas the soul will have to suffer according to its earthly life. And this has to be presented to the human being on earth so that he does not act out of ignorance but is aware of his responsibility. And this knowledge is imparted to him by the Christian teaching which precisely prescribes to the human being what he should do and refrain from doing, which clearly expresses God's will to him and which presents everything to him which is the human being's task on earth. If the human being lives according to this Christian teaching, he will turn his attention to the shaping of his soul and pay less attention to the body, and he will never have to fear a future responsibility. Then he will have fulfilled his earthly task, so to speak, namely, he will have shaped his soul, which requires a subordination of the body. And as soon as the body is valued less, the soul takes the course of higher development, namely it pays more attention to the spirit within itself and is instructed by it in everything that is beneficial for the soul to know and which earns it an increased state of maturity. And then it need no longer fear responsibility. It lives earthly life in accordance with God's will because it pays attention to His voice which speaks to it through the Spirit in the human being. For as soon as the human being lets the teaching of Christ take effect on him, he will do everything Jesus Christ has demanded of humanity. He will work in love and serve God and his neighbor. He will not disregard what God puts on the human being's heart through His word. He will make the divine teaching of love his guiding principle for his earthly way of life and try to shape himself into love. His will and his deed will coincide and always be turned towards good, and he will never ever fear responsibility, for he lives his earthly life according to Jesus' example. He seeks to follow him and is intimately and faithfully united with God. He has overcome the body and its demands, and the soul has united with the Spirit in itself. Amen.